The fatal mistake. The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Zarin scout ship, a sleek vessel designed for stealth and observation. Inside, Junior Officer Jorin clicked his mandibles in frustration as he studied the holographic display of Earth's surface. His first mission was turning out to be mind-numbingly dull, nothing like the glory-filled adventures he'd imagined during his training years. Commander Thal Rex, Jorin's voice carried an unmistakable edge of impatience. Why waste our resources on such a primitive world? These humans barely understand interstellar travel, let alone pose any significance to the Zarin Empire. Commander Thal Rex, a veteran of countless observation missions, turned his multifaceted eyes toward his young subordinate. Decades of service had etched wisdom into every plate of his exoskeleton, but it had also taught him the value of patience, especially with eager recruits like Jorin. Every civilization deserves study, Jorin. Thal Rex's voice resonated with the characteristic clicking undertone of their species. The Council's directive is clear: we observe, we document, we learn. Even the smallest details can yield valuable insights. Jorin suppressed a derisive click. His clawed fingers danced across the control panel, adjusting the ship's sensors to focus on a rural area below. The nighttime landscape was sparsely dotted with artificial illumination, primitive dwellings scattered across the terrain like dust motes on a scanner screen. The young officer's attention was drawn to a solitary figure walking along a dirt road, accompanied by a smaller quadrupedal creature. What manner of beast is that? Jorin asked, more out of boredom than genuine curiosity. A dog, Thal Rex replied, his tone carrying the weight of experience. Humans keep them as companions. They serve various functions: protection, hunting, emotional support. A fascinating example of cross-species cooperation. Jorin's antennae twitched with disgust. Companions? How utterly primitive. The very concept goes against everything we stand for. Strength, utility, advancement, these are the pillars of civilization. Not emotional attachments to lesser beings. Without waiting for his commander's permission, a breach of protocol that would have earned him severe punishment in the academy, Jorin activated the ship's targeting array. The cabin filled with a low hum as energy fields engaged, focusing on the dog below. Jorin. Thal Rex's warning came sharp and immediate. Disengage immediately. We are here to observe only. But Jorin's youthful arrogance had already taken control. With a casual flick of his appendage, he initiated what he believed to be a harmless scan beam. It's just a simple bioscan, Commander. Hardly worth. The beam that shot from the ship's underside was anything but harmless. The dog collapsed instantly, its life signs flickering and then fading completely on the ship's monitors. The human stopped walking, dropping to his knees beside the fallen animal. What have you done? Thal Rex pushed Jorin aside, his claws flying over the controls to disengage all active systems. You fool! You violated our primary directive. It's just an animal, Jorin protested weakly, though the gravity of his actions was beginning to sink in. The humans won't even know. Silence. Thal Rex's command cut through the air like a plasma blade. He initiated emergency protocols, guiding the ship into a rapid ascent. You have no idea what you've done. The Council will hear of this breach. As the ship disappeared into the upper atmosphere, leaving Earth's surface behind, neither Zarin could have known the magnitude of Jorin's mistake. They couldn't have known that the human they'd observed was John Wick, known in darker circles as Baba Yaga, the most lethal assassin Earth had ever produced. Far below, John Wick cradled the lifeless body of Daisy, his last connection to his beloved wife Helen. The dog had been her final gift to him, a chance at maintaining his humanity in a world that had taken everything else. As he held Daisy's cooling body, something inside him shifted, a awakening of something he tried desperately to bury. His eyes scanned the night sky, catching the briefest glimpse of something unnatural, a shimmer that disappeared faster than human technology should allow. In that moment, as grief and rage merged into a singular purpose, John Wick made a silent vow. Whatever had taken Daisy from him would pay, even if he had to tear apart the very fabric of reality to find them. The night air carried a chill as he carried Daisy's body back to his home. Each step was measured, deliberate, like a funeral march for the last shred of peace he'd managed to find in this world. Inside his house, surrounded by the carefully hidden remnants of his former life, John gently placed Daisy on her favorite blanket. He stood there for a long moment, his hands clenched into fists, his breathing controlled despite the storm raging within. Then, with mechanical precision, he moved to a specific floorboard in his study. The hidden compartment revealed beneath contained more than weapons, it contained the tools and contacts that had made him legendary in a world few dared to acknowledge. As dawn painted the sky in shades of blood and gold, John Wick began his preparations. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice, about consequences. Someone, or something, had made a fatal mistake, and he would ensure they understood exactly what they'd awakened. The first call he made was to an old contact, a person whose network of information stretched far beyond the ordinary channels of intelligence. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "The Continental's services are always available, John." Winston's cultured tones carried a note of surprise. "Though I must admit, we hadn't expected to hear from you again." "I need information." John's voice was raw, barely containing the fury beneath. "Something killed Daisy." "Something, not from here." A long pause followed. When Winston spoke again, his voice had lost its usual smugness. "Come to the Continental immediately. There are things you need to know, John. Things we've kept hidden from even our most trusted associates." As John prepared to leave, he took one last look at Daisy. "I'm sorry," he whispered, not just to her but to Helen as well. He had tried to leave that life behind, tried to honor Helen's wish for him to find peace. But peace was no longer an option. The Zarin Empire had made an unforgivable mistake. They had taken something precious from John Wick, believing him to be just another primitive human. Soon, they would learn why even the most hardened killers spoke his name in whispers. The hunt was about to begin, and this time, the prey had no idea what was coming for them. The Underground Network. The Continental Hotel stood as an imposing monument to secrets in the heart of New York City, its classical architecture masking its true nature as a nexus of the world's most dangerous professionals. John Wick crossed its threshold for the first time in years, the familiar scent of leather, gunpowder, and old money filling his nostrils. The lobby hadn't changed, the same marble floors, the same careful balance of luxury and lethal capability. Sharon, the ever-present concierge, looked up from his desk. His usual impassive expression flickered briefly with surprise before settling back into professional neutrality. "Welcome back, Mr. Wick," Karen's voice carried its familiar measured tone. "Manager Winston is expecting you in the lounge." John nodded, his footsteps echoing through the lobby as he made his way to the hotel's private lounge. The other guests, all killers, thieves, and specialists of the highest caliber, gave him a wide berth. Even after years of retirement, his reputation preceded him. Winston sat at his usual table, a glass of bourbon untouched before him. The manager of the Continental looked exactly as John remembered him, impeccably dressed, shrewd eyes missing nothing, an air of cultivated sophistication that barely concealed the dangerous man beneath. "Jonathan," Winston gestured to the chair across from him. "I must say, when I heard about your situation, I was quite concerned. We all thought your retirement was permanent." John sat, his movements controlled and precise. "It was supposed to be." "Tell me what you know, Winston." The older man sighed, reaching into his jacket to withdraw a thin file. "What I'm about to share with you isn't known to our usual clientele. The Continental has always served a broader purpose than most realize." He opened the file, spreading photographs across the table. They showed strange lights in the sky, unusual craft that defied conventional aerodynamics, and most importantly, incident reports of inexplicable events, including mysterious deaths of animals. For decades, we've maintained a separate division dedicated to monitoring non-terrestrial activities, Winston explained. Not just government agencies or traditional UFO hunters, but something far more sophisticated. We call it the Stellar Division. John studied the photographs, his trained eye noting patterns that others might miss. How long? Since the beginning, Winston replied. The Continental was never just about providing neutral ground for human operators. We've been the buffer between worlds, Jonathan. When certain elements from beyond our planet need services, they come to us. And when they step out of line, we ensure there are consequences. The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. John's mind raced with new possibilities, new angles to his hunt. The thing that killed Daisy, you know what it was? Winston nodded grimly. The energy signature matches known Zarin technology. They're supposed to be observers only, bound by strict non-intervention protocols. What happened to your dog was a violation of their own laws. I need everything you have on them. John's voice carried an edge that made even Winston pause. Their weaknesses, their patterns, how to find them. This isn't like hunting humans, Jonathan, Winston warned. The Zarin Empire spans galaxies. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Even with the Continental's resources. I don't care, John cut him off. They made their choice when they killed Daisy. Now they'll face the consequences. Winston studied him for a long moment before nodding. He pressed a button on his watch, and minutes later, a woman entered the lounge. She moved with the fluid grace of a trained operative, but there was something different about her, an otherworldly quality that John's instincts immediately registered. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, Winston introduced. Our chief xenotechnology specialist. If anyone can help you prepare for what you're about to face, it's her. Dr. Chen's eyes held the same haunted look John had seen in veterans of impossible wars. Mr. Wick, she acknowledged. I've studied the Zarins for 15 years. They're not invincible, but fighting them requires unconventional methods. Over the next several hours, Dr. Chen briefed John on everything the Stellar Division had learned about Zarin biology, technology, and tactics. Their exoskeletons were nearly impervious to conventional weapons, but they had vulnerabilities, specific frequencies that could disrupt their neural networks, weak points in their armor where their bodies joined with their technological enhancements. You'll need special equipment, she explained, laying out modified weapons on the table. Standard bullets won't penetrate their shields, but these will. She handed him what looked like a normal pistol, but its weight and balance were slightly off. Quantum-tipped rounds. They phase through energy shields and rematerialize on impact. John tested the weapon's grip, muscle memory already adapting to its unique characteristics. How do I find them? Dr. Chen activated a holographic display, showing a map of energy anomalies across the globe. They maintain observation posts in remote areas, disguised as weather stations or abandoned facilities. But their main vessel, that's in orbit. You'll need to draw them out. I can help with that, a new voice interjected. A man emerged from the shadows of the lounge, Marcus, one of the few assassins John had ever considered a friend. I've been working with the Stellar Division for years, John. Never thought I'd see you involved in this side of things. John's expression remained neutral, but something in his posture relaxed slightly. Marcus was more than just a skilled assassin, he was a tactical genius who had saved John's life more than once in the past. We've identified a Zarin scout post in the Carpathian Mountains, Marcus continued, pointing to a specific location on the holographic map. They're vulnerable there, operating with minimal security because they think humans can't detect them. It's your best chance to make contact and get their attention. It's suicide, Dr. Chen warned. Even with our equipment, you'd be going against beings who've mastered interstellar travel. They have weapons we can barely comprehend. John checked the quantum-tipped rounds, loading them into his new weapon with practiced efficiency. They already have my attention. Now it's time they had my focus. Winston watched this exchange with a mixture of concern and resignation. The Continental's resources are at your disposal, Jonathan. But remember, once you step into this world, there's no going back. The rules are different here. The rules changed when they killed my dog, John replied, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Everything else is just details. As the briefing continued, plans were made and equipment was gathered. But in orbit above the Earth, the Zarin ship remained unaware of the storm they had awakened. Commander Thal Rex was dealing with his own problems, trying to contain the diplomatic fallout of Jorin's unauthorized action while maintaining their observation mission. Neither the commander nor his impetuous junior officer could have imagined that their simple mission was about to collide with the legend of Baba Yaga. They had no way of knowing that their advanced technology and interstellar capabilities were about to be tested against something they'd never encountered in all their travels, a man of pure will, driven by grief and armed with the deadliest skills humanity had ever produced. The hunt was about to begin, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. First contact. The Carpathian Mountains loomed against the pre-dawn sky, their peaks shrouded in mist as John Wick made his final preparations. The abandoned Soviet-era research facility that served as the Zarin's observation post stood like a decaying sentinel among the pines, its dilapidated exterior masking the advanced technology hidden within. Marcus's voice crackled through the secure comm link in John's ear. Thermal imaging shows 3 distinct signatures inside. They're not human, body temperatures are too low, movement patterns all wrong. A pause, then, you sure about this, John? John checked his modified weapons one final time. The quantum-tipped rounds glowed faintly in their magazines with an otherworldly blue light. Dr. Chen's voice echoed in his memory, remember, their neural networks operate on completely different frequencies than human nervous systems. Standard tactics won't work. I'm sure, John replied, his voice carrying the same deadly calm that had made him legendary. He activated the specialized contact lenses Dr. Chen had provided, another piece of Continental's advanced tech that allowed him to see through Zarin cloaking fields. The facility's apparent decay melted away through the lenses, revealing the true structure beneath, a seamless blend of terrestrial architecture and alien technology. Energy fields pulsed with rhythmic patterns, and what had appeared to be broken windows now showed as sophisticated sensor arrays. John moved like a shadow, decades of training merging with the advanced equipment he now carried. The quantum phase generator strapped to his back emitted a low hum, creating a field that would theoretically allow him to bypass Zarin security measures. The first sign that something was wrong came when the air around him suddenly charged with static electricity. John dropped into a defensive crouch just as a beam of energy scorched the ground where he had been standing. They've detected you. Marcus's voice was urgent. John, their systems are more advanced than we thought. Get out of there. But John was already moving, not away from the danger, but toward it. He had spent the past week memorizing everything Dr. Chen knew about Zarin physiology and technology. Now it was time to put that knowledge to use. The first Zarin emerged from what appeared to be solid wall, its segmented armor gleaming in the dim light. It was tall, nearly 8 feet, with multiple limbs that moved with unsettling precision. Its mandibles clicked rapidly, their equivalent of speech, as it raised a weapon unlike anything Earth had ever produced. John fired first. The quantum-tipped round phased through the Zarin's energy shield and found its mark at the junction between armor plates. The alien staggered, fluorescent fluid leaking from the wound, but it didn't fall. Instead, its armor began to self-repair, nanobots working to seal the damage. Secondary nervous system, John muttered, remembering Dr. Chen's briefings. Has to be overloaded. He rolled behind a column as return fire demolished the ground around him. The Zarin weapons fired streams of particles that didn't just impact, they seemed to partially erase whatever they touched from reality itself. 2 more Zarins had joined the fight now, moving with the coordinated precision of veteran warriors. They spread out, trying to flank him, their movements suggesting they were used to dealing with technologically inferior opponents who could be easily overwhelmed. But John Wick was anything but easily overwhelmed. He activated the quantum disruptor Dr. Chen had given him, a last resort weapon that played havoc with the Zerin's integrated technology. The effect was immediate. The aliens' movements became jerky, their coordination disrupted as their cybernetic enhancements temporarily failed. John exploded into action. He fired with mathematical precision, each shot targeting the weak points Dr. Chen had identified. The first Zerin went down, its exoskeleton crackling with energy as its systems failed. The second managed to fire a burst that grazed John's arm, the particle beam leaving a wound that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. The pain was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, but John pushed through it. He had endured worse, and he had a promise to keep. The second Zerin fell to a combination of quantum rounds and a specially modified EMP grenade that overwhelmed its neural network. The third Zerin, however, was different. Its armor was more elaborate, its movements more refined. This wasn't just a scout, it was their leader. Through his enhanced lenses, John could see the complex patterns of energy flowing through its systems, far more sophisticated than the others. "Commander," John said in English, knowing the alien could understand him through its translation systems. "Your subordinate killed my dog." The Zerin commander's response came through the translation matrix in John's earpiece, a regrettable error. "One that has been addressed. The responsible party has been disciplined." "Not good enough." John's voice was glacial. "Where is he?" "You cannot possibly think you can challenge the Zerin Empire," the commander's translated voice carried a note of genuine confusion. "We are beyond your comprehension, beyond your reach." "No," John replied, ejecting his spent magazine and loading a fresh one with deliberate slowness. "You're not beyond anything. You just don't understand what you're dealing with." The fight that followed would be discussed in whispered tones in both human and Zerin circles for years to come. The commander's advanced armor and weapons met John's decades of experience and modified technology in a dance of death that shattered the pre-dawn silence. Energy beams sliced through the air as John moved with preternatural speed, each motion exactly calculated. The Zerin's multiple limbs became a blur of lethal strikes, but John had studied their combat patterns. He knew their weaknesses, their tendencies, the microscopic delays in their cybernetic response times. The end came not with a dramatic explosion or a final decisive blow, but with a series of precise shots that systematically disabled the commander's neural network. The alien collapsed, its systems failing in cascading waves of disrupted energy. John stood over the fallen commander, his weapon trained on its head. "The one who killed my dog. Where?" The commander's mandibles clicked weakly as it responded, "The main ship, in orbit." "But you'll never reach it. Our defenses." "I already have," John interrupted, holding up a small device he'd removed from the commander's armor, a quantum-encrypted access key to the main vessel. "Your defenses are designed to stop ships, technology, weapons. They're not designed to stop someone like me." As if to punctuate his words, the facility's systems began to overload. Marcus had done his part, introducing a virus into their network that would destroy any evidence of what had happened here. "This is impossible," the commander's translation came through garbled as its systems failed. "You're just human." "No," John replied, turning to leave as the facility began to collapse around them. "I'm the one you should have never angered." Hours later, at a secure Continental facility, Dr. Chen studied the data they'd recovered from the Zerin outpost. Her expression was a mixture of awe and disbelief as she turned to John, who was having his particle beam wound treated with technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "You did more than just defeat them," she said. "You proved they can be beaten." "But the main ship?" "John, what they have up there makes this facility look primitive." "Doesn't matter," John replied, checking his weapons as the medical nanites finished their work. "They made a choice. Now they'll learn about consequences." Marcus entered the room, carrying new equipment. "Stellar Division's pulling out all the stops. Whatever you need, it's yours. But John. He hesitated, getting to that ship, it's never been done. John thought of Daisy, of Helen, of the piece that had been stolen from him. His expression hardened with resolve. There's a first time for everything. Ascent. The Stellar Division's underground facility hummed with activity as Dr. Chen made final adjustments to what looked like a sleek, black suit of armor. But this was no ordinary protective gear, it was a hybrid of human ingenuity in reverse-engineered Xeran technology, designed to do the impossible. The quantum harmonizer is stable, she reported, running diagnostic tools over the suit's intricate systems. But John, you need to understand what you're attempting. This suit is the only thing that will keep you alive during orbital insertion. One malfunction, one mistake. John stood perfectly still as technicians helped him into the armor. Layer by layer, the advanced technology merged with his body, neural interfaces connecting directly to his nervous system. The sensation was alien, uncomfortable, but he pushed the discomfort aside. Focus was everything. The suit will protect you from vacuum, radiation, and detection, Marcus explained, monitoring the integration process. But the orbital insertion, that's the real gamble. We've never attempted anything like this before. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. Rather than trying to reach the Xeran mothership by conventional means, they would use a modified quantum teleportation system. The technology, salvaged from the Carpathian facility, would allow John to bypass the ship's external defenses entirely, if it worked. The window will be brief, Dr. Chen continued. Their quantum shielding cycles every 3.7 Earth hours. When it does, there's a microsecond of vulnerability. If we time this wrong. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew the consequences of failure. John flexed his hands, feeling how the suit responded to his movements. How long will I have once I'm inside? 20 minutes, maximum, Marcus replied. After that, the suit's stealth systems will fail. Every Xeran on that ship will know you're there. He paused, checking data streams on a nearby monitor. Speaking of which, we've identified your target. Junior Officer Jorin, he's stationed in the ship's observation deck. But he won't be alone. Dr. Chen activated a holographic display showing the interior layout of the Xeran vessel, based on data they'd extracted from the commander's neural network. The ship is massive, over 2 kilometers long. These sections here, she pointed to specific areas, are heavily guarded. And these red zones? Those are areas we have no data on. Complete unknowns. The quantum-tipped rounds worked well planet-side, John observed, checking his modified weapons. What else do we have? Marcus opened a case containing specialized equipment. These are phase grenades, they create localized disruptions in space-time. Use them sparingly. They're as dangerous to you as they are to them. He held up another device, smaller but more complex. And this is something special. We call it the nullifier. It completely shuts down any Xeran technology within its radius. One shot, one use. Make it count. As the preparations continued, Winston arrived, looking as impeccable as ever despite the late hour. The Continental's counsel is concerned, Jonathan. This operation goes beyond anything we've attempted. If you succeed, you'll change everything. If you fail. I won't fail, John's response was simple, absolute. Winston nodded slowly. The Council has authorized full deployment of our orbital assets. We'll create a diversion, make them think we're launching a conventional attack. It should buy you some time. He paused, studying John carefully. But remember, even if you reach Jorin, even if you eliminate him, getting out will be. Getting out isn't the priority, John interrupted. The meaning was clear, this was a one-way mission. The technology that would get him to the ship couldn't be used for return transit. The physics simply wouldn't allow it. Dr. Chen made a final adjustment to the suit's systems. The neural interface is stable. How does it feel? John took a few steps, feeling how the armor moved with him, enhanced his movements. It was like wearing a second skin made of liquid metal and quantum energy. It feels ready. The next hour was spent in final preparations. The suit's systems were calibrated, weapons were checked and rechecked, and the quantum teleportation device was aligned with precise coordinates obtained from Continental's orbital tracking stations. As the team made their way to the teleportation chamber, Marcus pulled John aside. "There's something else you should know. Our deep space sensors detected additional Zarin ships entering the solar system. Whatever happens up there, it's going to change things. For all of us." John absorbed this information without visible reaction. "How long?" 48 hours, maybe less. If they reach Earth's orbit before you complete your mission. Marcus let the implications hang in the air. The teleportation chamber was a marvel of hybrid technology, sleek Zarin design merged with human innovation. Dr. Chen's team had worked around the clock to modify it for this single purpose. The air crackled with potential energy as systems powered up. "Remember," Dr. Chen said, making final adjustments, "the suit's stealth systems will give you 20 minutes. The nullifier will buy you maybe another 5. After that." She hesitated. "John, are you sure about this? The odds of survival." "Odds don't matter," John replied, checking his weapons one final time. They made their choice. Now they faced the consequences. Winston stepped forward, holding something, a small pendant on a chain. "The Council insisted you take this. It's a quantum beacon. If by some miracle you find a way to survive, it will guide you home." John accepted the pendant without comment, securing it beneath his armor. The chamber hummed with increasing power as final coordinates were locked in. "Quantum shielding cycle in 30 seconds, a technician announced. 29, 28. Dr. Chen's fingers flew over control panels. Neural interface at optimal levels. Quantum field stabilizing. 15 seconds. Marcus stood at attention, a soldier's farewell to a comrade. "Give them hell, John." 5 seconds. John thought of Daisy, of Helen, of the peace he'd found and lost. His grip tightened on his weapons. 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved into quantum probability, and John Wick began his ascent to bring vengeance to the stars. Reckoning. Reality reassembled itself around John Wick in a cascade of quantum particles. The teleportation had worked. He stood in a shadowed alcove aboard the Zarin mothership, his specialized suit already adapting to mask his presence from the vessel's internal sensors. The ship's interior was both beautiful and alien, organic curves melded seamlessly with technological precision, creating corridors that seemed to pulse with living energy. Through his enhanced vision, John could see the complex networks of power and information flowing through the very walls. 19 minutes until stealth systems failure, his suit's AI warned in a whisper. "Quantum signature located, target is 2 levels up, observation deck alpha." John moved with practiced silence, each step calculated. The suit enhanced his natural abilities, making him faster, stronger, but it couldn't mask the sound of combat. He would need to be selective with his engagements. The first challenge came at an intersection of corridors. 2 Zarin guards stood at their post, their armor more elaborate than those he'd encountered on Earth. Their mandibles clicked in conversation, the translation matrix in John's suit picking up fragments about the approaching reinforcement fleet. He waited, watching their patterns. The guards moved with military precision, but there was a rhythm to their movements, a predictability born of routine. When they separated briefly during their patrol pattern, John struck. The quantum-tipped rounds found their marks with surgical precision. Both guards went down before they could raise an alarm, their neural networks overloaded by the specialized ammunition. John dragged their bodies into a recessed alcove, knowing the ship's automated systems would eventually detect the disturbance. 16 minutes remaining, the AI updated as John accessed a nearby terminal, using techniques Dr. Chen had taught him to navigate the alien interface. The ship's internal schematics confirmed his target's location, and revealed something troubling. The observation deck was heavily guarded, with security protocols far beyond what should be needed for a junior officer's post. They were expecting him. 14 minutes, the AI warned as John made his way upward through the ship's gravity-controlled access ways. He encountered 2 more patrols, each requiring split-second decisions and perfect execution. The quantum rounds were running low, he would need to be more selective with their use. When he reached the level below the observation deck, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. His suit's stealth systems were still functioning, this was something else. Continental forces detected, the ship's internal announcement system declared in the clicking language of the Zerans. Multiple Earth vessels approaching. All combat personnel to battle stations. Winston's diversion was right on schedule. The ship shuddered as it began repositioning, preparing to defend against what it thought was humanity's primary attack. But the diversion created new complications, the corridors filled with rushing Zaran troops, all heading to their combat stations. 10 minutes until stealth failure, the AI reported as John was forced to take a longer route, avoiding the main thoroughfares. Caution, quantum fluctuations detected ahead. Possible high-energy weapons. The observation deck's entrance was exactly as intelligence had suggested, heavily fortified with energy fields and guard posts. But most of the guards had been drawn away by the apparent Earth attack, leaving only 4 elite soldiers protecting what appeared to be a hastily established command center. John activated one of his phase grenades, calculating its trajectory with cold precision. The device detonated in a silent implosion of spacetime, temporarily creating a zone where physics itself broke down. 2 of the guards were caught in the effect, their forms twisting impossibly before disappearing into the quantum void. The remaining guards reacted with impressive speed, but John was already moving. He expended his remaining quantum rounds with devastating accuracy, each shot finding the weak points in their advanced armor. The last guard managed to fire a burst from an energy weapon that nearly overwhelmed John's suit's defensive systems. 5 minutes until stealth failure, the AI warned as John approached the deck's main doors. Caution, multiple life signs detected inside. Unknown energy signatures present. Inside the observation deck, he found not just Jorin, but Commander Thal Rex as well, the same commander he defeated on Earth, now partially rebuilt with even more advanced cybernetics. They were surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching Continental forces, but their attention was fully focused on the door. "We knew you would come," Thal Rex's translated voice carried a note of what might have been respect. "Your species continues to surprise us." Jorin stood slightly behind his commander, his posture radiating arrogance despite the situation. One primitive being cannot hope to challenge the might of the Zaran Empire. Your entire planet will soon learn this lesson. 3 minutes until stealth failure, the AI whispered. John assessed the situation with practiced efficiency. Both Zerans wore advanced armor, likely capable of withstanding his remaining weapons. The room's defenses were formidable, and the approaching reinforcement fleet meant time was critically short. He reached for the nullifier, the one-shot device that could temporarily disable all Zaran technology within its radius. But before he could activate it, Thal Rex made an unexpected move. "Wait," the commander raised one of his cybernetic limbs. "There is something you should understand, John Wick. Your reputation has reached even our highest councils. What happened to your companion was not authorized. Jorin's actions have already brought shame to our empire." The dog was insignificant. Jorin protested. "These humans and their emotional attachments, it's proof of their inferiority." 1 minute until stealth failure, the AI's warning was urgent now. John's voice was cold as space itself. "You still don't understand. This was never about superiority. It was about consequences." He activated the nullifier. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Every piece of Zeren technology in the room went dark. The advanced armor that made them nearly invincible became dead weight, their cybernetic enhancements turned to useless metal. In that moment, they were stripped of everything that made them feel superior. What followed was not a battle between species or technologies. It was simpler than that, it was John Wick doing what he did best. His suit's enhanced strength let him tear through the now useless armor, and years of training made every strike count. Thal Rex fought with the skill of a veteran warrior, even without his technological advantages. But John had faced worse odds, had overcome greater challenges. The commander fell, his final words a warning about the approaching fleet. Jorin, stripped of his technological advantages, proved to be what John had first suspected, a coward hiding behind advanced weapons. His end was swift, fitting for one who had killed an innocent creature out of casual cruelty. Stealth systems failing, the AI announced as John stood in the aftermath. Multiple hostile forces converging on your location. Estimated survival probability, 0%. Through the observation deck's massive windows, John could see Earth below, a blue jewel in the darkness. The Continental's forces were engaging the mothership, their weapons specifically designed to damage Zeren technology. But in the distance, multiple flash points of light indicated the arrival of the reinforcement fleet. John reached for the quantum beacon Winston had given him, but paused as he noticed something on one of the still-functioning displays, a weakness in the ship's quantum drive system, one that could be exploited with the right application of force. The next few minutes were a blur of precise action. Using his remaining phase grenades and knowledge gained from Dr. Chen's briefings, John initiated a cascade failure in the ship's main systems. As alarms blared and Zeren forces rushed to contain the damage, he made his way to a very specific location, one where the ship's quantum field would be strongest when it collapsed. The quantum beacon activated just as the ship's systems reached critical levels. In the confusion of the cascade failure, with space itself twisting around the dying vessel, something impossible happened. The same physics that had allowed the Zerans to traverse galaxies now bent to serve a different purpose. Hours later, in the secure medical bay of the Continental's orbital facility, Dr. Chen struggled to explain what her instruments had recorded. The ship's quantum drive collapse created a localized field of probability uncertainty, she told Winston and Marcus. Combined with the beacon's signature, it should have been impossible, but this is John Wick we're talking about, Marcus finished with a slight smile, watching through a window as medical teams treated their unconscious but very much alive friend. If anyone could beat quantum physics itself. Winston nodded thoughtfully, studying reports of the Zeren reinforcement fleet's unexpected retreat. The Continental's Council has received a most interesting communication from the Zeren Empire. It seems our demonstration of consequences has led them to reconsider their approach to Earth. In the medical bay, John Wick slept, his mission complete. On a table beside him lay two items, a quantum beacon, its power source depleted, and a small dog tag that had once belonged to a companion named Daisy. The message had been sent. Not just to the Zerans, but to any force in the galaxy that might threaten what John Wick held dear. Consequences have consequences. The end.